Hey there, welcome to Hooks and Ladders. My name is Blair Packham.
And I'm Allister Bradley.
Yes, you are. So today I was hoping we could talk about the building blocks of songs, like the most basic sections, because there are people who aren't clear, I think, on what the sections do. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we hear the terms. We hear the terms tossed around. Oh, that would be your chorus. That would be your verse. And some people still cringe a little bit and they say, "But I don't know what I've got."
Right, right. Yes, and it is important to recognize what you've got at some point in the process, to recognize what it is you're writing. At the beginning, it might just be you're spewing out something, so to speak. That's not a very romantic way of describing it, but you're just producing something, you're just writing something, you're just singing something, you're humming something. You don't know what it is. But at a certain point, I think it's important to recognize what it is and how it's working in the overall piece. I'm not sure what that point is. I think it depends on the song itself and on the songwriter. But if we were to identify what the sections of a song are, you mentioned chorus. What is a chorus?
Well, the chorus, I believe it's so named because it's the part of the song that most people will want to sing along with. It is in modern songwriting, it's the place where the central point of the song, the emotional message of the song, is going to live. So that when we sing it the same way again and again and again, we drive home the point of the song. We remind people of the emotion that we're feeling, that we hope they're feeling.
That's right. Yeah, that sounds very good. Yeah, it's the sing along part. It's the summation of the idea. Often in a chorus, the notes get longer because the idea is maybe simpler. In other parts of the song there might be some details that are important to get across, but in the chorus it's kind of more open. So the notes might get longer because again, if you're singing along, you can sing, and here is the chorus, and that's where the hook hopefully resides, or one of the hooks anyway. What about a verse? What would a
What
verse
about
be?
verse?
Yeah.
For me, without knowing what the chorus is, it's very hard to build verses because for me, the verses are the who, what, when, where, why, how. What did I miss? Uh, uh, because all those questions, they're filling in the blanks of the story. Who are we singing about? Why? How did we get to this point in our life that we're having an experience and we're singing about it? Those for me are the purposes of the verse to get the movie rolling, to to set the scene. It's kind of like in the joke. There's the introduction to the joke, but the punchline, that's the chorus. That's where everything is paid off.
Right. It's kind of like a setup payoff construction, like a joke, with the punchline, where there's a setup and the premise of the joke is set up in the opening line, and then some detail is added, and then there's, a moment of what's going to happen next, and then the chorus gives you that payoff. So yeah, the verse is where the details reside. The verse is where the story is laid out. Maybe the setting, maybe the place. Some songs say, in a small town in Greensboro, named Greensboro. I don't know why I picked Greensboro. It's not even easy to sing, but in a small town in Texas, there, that works better. But it's sort of laying out when I was just 17. It's like, oh, okay, so this is in the past and it's in Texas. Now we know that from the opening two lines, right? So the details happen there, but the chorus might be, that's when I grew up to be a man. It's like when I learned how to work on Daddy's oil rig, or whatever the song is. That's a terrible idea for a song, especially for a guy from Toronto. But anyway, um, but you know what I mean. The verse is where the details are, and the chorus is where the payoff is. So let me ask you this then. We've talked about the chorus being the sing along part. Then that indicates that it would be repeated. What about verses? Are they repeated?
No, no, they're not.
At least not lyrically. They're not lyrically
Well,
repeated.
and not typically. The only exception to that I can imagine is when we get to the end of a song. Sometimes we roll out the verse one again as an outro.
Well, and why would we do that? By the way, that's an interesting thing to do. What's the
Wow.
emotional effect of that? Remembering that the whole point of this whole exercise is to make somebody else feel something. So what's the emotional point of doing that?
Well, I was about to say that often the point of doing that is so that the listener wants to hear the song again because we've started the song again. So when the song is over, they press, repeat and they go back and play it again.
Well, yeah, no, I think that's a reasonable thing. You want people to listen to your song again, and maybe they'll get something new on another listen. For me, though, the more immediate effect of it uh, is it's a reiteration of where we started, but the audience recognizes how far we've come.
Mhm.
Right? The story has been told. It's really an effective thing to do, to revisit your opening lines again at the end of the song, because it's sort of like, oh, I see. This is at the beginning of the song, I felt this, and then I went through the experience of listening to the song, and at the end, I hear the very same lines, but I feel something different, and it's a pretty interesting thing to do. But you're right.
But apart from that, again, getting back to your question,
Mhm.
if in verse one I'm setting the scene, I'm introducing the characters, I'm introducing some history. Imagine that as a piece of video footage. Why would I play that again later in the
Right.
song? It's already
Yeah.
served its purpose. It's taken me from A to B, and then another verse will take me from B to C, advance me through the history, through the story, and then the chorus comes along and gives me a reason to feel something.
The screenwriter Robert McKee, who has written a number of books on screenwriting, some of which have become cliches in that world, um, but he talks about needing an inciting incident. That is really the reason why this story is going to be told, and that really would happen in your first verse, ideally in your first couple of lines. It really shouldn't take you to verse 2 or 3 to tell us why you're writing this song or why you're telling this story. You should really get to it earlier than that, the inciting incident, whatever it was. It was a small town in Texas when I was just a boy, and Daddy, I'm just making this up, and so excuse me if it's crappy. And Daddy owned the biggest oil rigs around, or whatever. And then one day a fire started, and it could not be tamed. It's kind of exciting. That's the inciting incident. The fire started that could not be tamed. Right now, I don't know if I'd finish that song because it doesn't really interest me, oil rigs burning. But it might be a metaphor for a love that happened at the same time with this guy in Texas. Oh, excuse me, I've got to go write a song now. So, no, just kidding. I don't think I would finish that song. But you see what I'm saying, though. The inciting incident happens early in the song, and really is the reason for the song happening at all. And then the chorus is kind of a summation.
Yes, and by the time the chorus rolls around, we're in a position to share how we feel about what's going on because hopefully that reaches into the listener's experience and they recognize the emotion. Whether
Yes.
whether they've ever experienced anything about Texas or oil rigs or fires, it doesn't matter.
No.
As
No.
long as we have a shared emotional experience when the chorus comes along.
Steve Earle, the great American songwriter, says that songwriting is empathy. And he says people don't care about your sad story. They care about your sad story as it affects them. And that really, really is true. You can sing your sad story, but if it doesn't communicate to other people, then they're not going to pay attention to it. So it has to be relatable. Now, it's interesting what you said. The it doesn't have to be relatable in terms of a small town in Texas where there's an oil rig on fire. Many of us don't have that experience of ever having seen that, much less lived it or been around it. But it's the emotion that conjures up, and the various emotions and how that connects to a wider experience. So details can be highly personal, and you don't have to make a song totally universal in order to make people love it. You can sing about your cat Fluffy, and maybe nobody else has a cat named Fluffy, but lots of people have cats, and lots of people have empathy and love for animals. So they're gonna, if you tell the story well, they're gonna relate to that, whether they have a cat named Fluffy or not. So okay, but getting back to the basic building blocks of songs. So that's a verse, that's a chorus. What's a bridge?
Well, I'll backtrack and I'll say that before the first chorus comes along, I need to know enough about the story that I can have that emotional reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But so don't leave out anything about, who the players are, and especially where I fit into this. If you imagine a singer being on stage sharing a song and they sing a song that employs the pronoun you ought to know, you were there, lines like that in your lyric. I need to know, sitting back in my chair, whether I was there or whether I'm observing somebody who's telling a story where they're singing to somebody else. These things need to be established before the first chorus comes along so that I can have the right emotional reaction. But then we follow it with more verse that goes in a different direction and sets up maybe a different coloration of the next chorus. But by the time I've heard the chorus repeat, I've experienced pretty much the song in its entirety. And that pattern matching piece of my brain that says, wow, now I know what a verse is and I know what a chorus is and I've recognized each of those as they came along. I need a break. I need to go somewhere different.
Now, when you say I need a break, you're not talking about you as a songwriter who's sitting and critiquing a song. You're talking about a generalized listener.
I'm talking about a listener, yes, a music
Yeah,
listener.
yeah, yeah. And who may not be able to name those sections as a verse and a chorus. They may not be able to label them, but they know this part is different from this part. Oh, here comes that part where the notes are longer and the title of the song happens to be or whatever. They may not know it's called a chorus, but they're experiencing it. And by the time they've heard the chorus twice, usually, that's that's when there's a need for a breath of fresh air or a
Mm-hmm.
left turn, a new idea, new chords. Not necessarily not new chords like new chords that no one has ever heard before, not new chords like that, but just chords in a different order than what we've heard in the song so far, or maybe a chord that we haven't heard in this song yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just something new. Uh, it isn't the place in the song where I would tell a lot more story. It's too late in the song for me to be telling a lot more of the setup for the chorus. But I can be telling, if I'm using lyrics in my bridge, I can be talking about things with a different twist, looking at things
Right.
from a different angle, or asking a what if question. Those kind of things could live in the bridge.
Yeah.
But one of the juiciest parts of the function of this bridge, take me away to a new place where I can relax and just enjoy something different with the anticipation of coming back to that chorus that I've heard twice that I'm dying to hear again.
So much of songwriting is about tension and release. So much of life is about tension and release. So much of stand up comedy, sitcoms, drama, tension and release. And this is something that as humans we look for. Our brains look for it unconsciously. We look for patterns that will set up the tension and then set up the release. And songs are no different. So you need contrast. Your verse shouldn't sound like your chorus, ideally. Um, your bridge shouldn't sound like either of those sections. If you have a bridge, now, does every song need a bridge?
No, no, but I do think songs typically need a change of pressure. They do need that breath of fresh air. It could be an
Yeah.
instrumental break.
Yeah, it could be a breakdown. Could just go down to drums for 4 bars.
Yeah.
That could serve as your bridge. Could revisit whatever you used as an intro. Maybe you used you vamped on the one chord for 4 bars. You go back to that. Motown songs, classic Motown songs, sometimes just had a where they went to the four and then back to the one. We'll explain what these things are later in terms of chord changes. But they just a simple chord change with no lyrics, and yet it served the function of a bridge.
And sometimes there isn't even another section there. Sometimes we've done a couple of verses before the first chorus, and then verse, and then a chorus, and we've done enough. So maybe we repeat the chorus once or twice, and the song's over. If the song's going to be over, then we don't need that change in pressure. We don't need that breath of something new, do
The
we?
end will supply that change.
Yes.
Just the fact that you finally stopped. Um, Let me ask you this then. Those three elements, the verse, the chorus, and the bridge, those are really, in my mind, the basic building blocks of songs. But there will be people watching who will say, yeah, but what about songs that don't have a chorus?
What about songs don't have a
And there
chorus?
are lots and lots of those songs. Many, many songs, huge songs, successful songs people love. Yesterday, the Beatles song, no chorus. You know, there are many, many other examples. Bob Dylan, many of his songs in his entire career, no chorus. So how do you do that? How do you, if the chorus, the function of the chorus is to sum up the idea and have the sing along part. How do you do it without a chorus at all?
Well, we need that emotional connection somewhere. And if we don't have a chorus, then usually what we'll do is at the end of one of these sections where we're telling a bit of story, we'll finish up with a bit of emotional reflection. And that will be the same line, probably the title of the song, that we'll employ at the end of every subsequent section. We could have a story about, somebody who's lost the love of their life, and the section ends with, I am so lonesome I could cry. I know we've heard that line before, but that's the emotional wrap up for what happened there. And then another section could be taking the story further, deeper, looking at history, looking at what might have been the future, but wrapping it up with that emotional, I'm so lonesome I could cry, as if it were the chorus doing that.
Yeah, so effectively, the last line of a verse most often could perform the function of a chorus, and so we would call that a refrain, I think, or that's one word for describing it. But it would be a sing along part that the audience would know is coming, usually signaled by the fact that there's a rhyming word just before that will rhyme with that final line.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
and then if we've heard two such of these verses with a refrain line at the end, it kind of feels like after we've heard two of those, we need a break, don't we?
Why she had anyway. I won't sing anymore in case Paul
Yes.
McCartney calls us.
So
But yeah, the B part. So in that kind of construction, we wouldn't really be calling it verse chorus verse chorus. It would be verse and then B part. So we'd call it A B A construction. And Yesterday is that kind of construction. But so are literally millions of other songs.
yes, millions of great songs.
Many Chuck Berry songs, for instance, don't have choruses. Johnny Be Good does, probably his most famous song, does have a chorus, but many don't. They have a line at the end of each verse, like Bob Dylan songs as well.
Now that structure is much less common in modern pop music.
Agreed. Yeah.
Choruses are far more common.
Also, pre-choruses, very common in modern pop music, and breakdowns and sing-along parts, vocalese, whoa, whoa, parts, like that. And that's, those are good. Those add to the list of hooks in your songs. But yes, the AABA construction is not very commonly found today, except perhaps in folk music, to a degree in country music. But most pop-oriented songs these days have choruses, very distinct choruses.
Yes, yes. I will say this about the B section in the AABA. It's most typically sung with the same lyrics, even if the B section comes around again. It's not like it doesn't function in the same way as a verse, in which we're going to give you more information every time the B section comes around. Just like in the Beatles Yesterday, that Why She Had to Go, I don't know, that's sung the same way each time it comes around.
Yeah.
But it's not a chorus because it doesn't contain that emotional connection, that emotional message.
Yeah. And in that song, I don't know that there's anything repeated. Well, maybe I Believe in Yesterday gets sung twice. I think, Oh, I Believe in Yesterday. But it's only sung twice out of, a whole bunch of times. But the word yesterday appears all over the place, including the very opening word of the song. So,
Yes.
So it ends up, hammering that title home, which, is part of your job as a songwriter, I think, is to make your song memorable and make people want to hear it again. That's what I believe. There are people who resist that idea because it seems crass or hacky. I don't agree with them. Because I believe your job as a songwriter is to connect to other people emotionally. And I believe that one way of doing that is making them want to hear it again somehow.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk about the bigger concept behind songwriting, I think, maybe at another time. But for now, those are the basic building blocks of songs. And hopefully that was useful for you. Was it useful for you, Allister?
It's always useful to talk about songwriting. Now I'm inspired to go write some more songs.
That's right. Good.
I'll have to blow off a
Good.
few meetings, but I can make it happen.
You can. I know you can. I have faith in you.